Now you can just try these two questions on your own. So the first one is to show the customer name of the company which made the most amount of orders. And the second question is to display each customer's first and last order date. So for both of these questions you will need to join the table. I will pause the video now and then I can go over the answers after. Okay, so hopefully you got on okay with those. So I've just opened up a new query, and as usual I'll just select all from the first table. So since we want the amount of orders, I'll just show everything from the orders table. And what we need to do is we need to join the customers table so that we can bring in the customer name. So I'll just name this T1, and we'll just join the, so I'll just do inner join of the customers, and name it T2, and we'll just join them on the customer number. So you'll see that the customers table here also has customer number as the primary key. So let's bring in everything from both tables first. Second one. So now all the customer names will be on the right hand side. So we're going to see it multiple times due to the multiple orders for each customer. So from here we just need to select the customer name, and we want to count the order number, and that will be the amount of orders. So if we run this, we need to group by the customer name, and then we'll show how many orders each customer had. So to get the highest amount, we want to order this then by the kind of order number. So, or I can just copy the column orders, and we'll order this by orders. But we want to do that in descending order, so it shows the highest first. And then you can see there the Euro plus shopping channel at the most orders. And also, if you only wanted to show the first row here, you can limit it by, there's an option here, but it only gives you 10, 50, etc. So what we can do is just we can type at the very end, limit 1, and then it will only show the Euro plus shopping channel. So well done if you got that. I'll just do a semicolon, and then for the next one we want to show each customer's first and last order date. So again we'll show the columns from the orders and customers table so that we can bring in the order dates and the customer name. So we'll just select all columns and I'll just paste it in our from the way above. And what we want to show is again the customer name. And then we want to show for the first order date, we just need to use the min integrity function, and that will be min order date. And we can name that column first order date. And for the most recent order, we choose max. And also order date. And we'll name that latest order date. And then finally we can just group it by the customer name. So if we run that, then we're going to have each customer's first and last order. So well done if you got those. So in the next section we'll start looking at subqueries and common table expressions. So I'll see you there. Hi everyone, welcome back. So in this section we will look at subqueries and CTEs, or common table expressions. So I do use both of these all the time. Having a good understanding of them is important. So let's look at subqueries first. So a subquery is a query that appears inside another query statement. So you would commonly use these to take an aggregate of an aggregate, or a calculation of an aggregated field, such as average count of orders. So you can see here what it would look like. You'll have a select statement inside brackets. And you will name this. As you can see I named it T1. So think of the output of this as being a table you're not querying from. Here's an example. You can see I have the order date and a count of order number to show the orders. So now we will just show all columns from this table. So let's use this query to calculate the average amount of orders. Okay, so I'll just open up a new query. So I'll just show what the subquery will be displaying. So if we want to select the order date and the count of the order number, we'll name that actually as orders. And that's from the orders table. We just need to group by our order date. Okay, so we can see how many orders there were each day. Some day had 4, 3, 2, and 1. So now we're going to just create a table with this. So let's just put it in brackets. Open and close brackets, and we just need to name it. So we name it after the closing bracket as T1. You can actually write as T1 or just leave it as T1. You don't have to write as. And then above it we'll just write select star from. So this is now our table. And if you run that we'll get the same output. But now we can change this star and create another calculation from our aggregate that came out. So now we can just do an average of orders. Although I expect it to be quite low, yeah. You can see only 1.23 is the average amount of orders. And what we could also do, so I'll just highlight this subquery. If you just highlight any part of a query and execute it, it will only execute that highlighted query. So again, it's just going to return the table. And say we wanted to, for example, we'll order this by order date. You can see there's more orders a bit later on, so we could add in a where statement after our subquery, just like we would after a table. And we'll do where order date is greater than, let's say, let's open our quotation 2005, 05, 01. And then we can run that order date. You can see it's slightly higher then. Okay, so in the next video we will look at a common table expression, or CTE. Hi everyone, so now we'll cover CTEs, which is short for a common table expression. So it's another way of writing a subquery, and I do have a personal preference to use these instead of subqueries, but it really depends on the situation. You can see here how a CTE would look. You start it by saying with, and then you name the table, and then as, and then you enter your query. And then you do a select star, or select the column names from the CTE name. So let's use an example from our subquery before, and we'll put it into the CTE instead in MySQL Workbench. Okay, so I just opened up the same query we did in the previous subquery video. So let's just rewrite this as a CTE. So I'll just delete the name we gave to the table, and then I'll just copy the start the query with this. So just above it we write with, and I'll just name it CTE underscore orders as. So that's going to name this table CTE orders. And then after the brackets, you don't need to name the table after the brackets, we can write, or we can just start writing our query. So select average orders from CTE orders. We can keep the order date condition. So we're going to get the same result as before. And we can use multiple CTEs. We would just need to separate them with a comma. So if I put a comma after the CTE name, and then we can start writing another CTE, but we don't have to use with, otherwise it won't work. So we just start with the table name. So I'll just name it CTE payments, for example. And then let's just do a select star from payments. So you can see now we have two tables. Oh, yeah, we just need to do as. So CTE payments as, and then it's in brackets. But we don't put a comma after the last table. And then you can just start writing your query after that. So this is where you can start joining CTEs together, etc. But we won't cover that now, but we will do it in the analysis that we do later. You can see here, not all databases offer this, but you can minimize these tables just to tidy up your query a bit. So it's nice to just do that as well. So that's it for CTEs for now, but as I said, we will cover them in greater detail later in the course. In the next section, though, we will look at the case statement, which is another very important topic. So we'll see you in the next section. Okay, so now we're going to cover the case statement. This is something that I would use every day. So we'll cover it in a bit of detail. Quite important. So it will return the specified value based on a condition. I often use it to group a column into ranges or to create a flag. It is also known as if-else in some other programming languages. So I most commonly use it in a select statement, but it can also be used in a where clause or a join. For the syntax, we start by entering the first condition and then specifying what to return if that condition is met. And we can add as many of these as we like. In this statement, for example, the three conditions specified are not met, then output 4 would be returned. Let's look at an example. So in this statement, the credit limit is below 75,000. We're returning a statement which states less than 75,000. Then if the credit limit is between 75,000 and 100,000, it will return this statement 75 to 100k. Then you can see the next one, 100 to 150, and then we have a credit limit greater than 150, then over 150,000. Because I have grouping case statements to cover every possible value, it will always fall into one of these groupings. However, whenever we use our else statement, it is always good practice to write other, just in case a mistake was made. Because rather than writing our final statement here, when credit limit over 150, it may be tempting just to write else, and then this output over 150,000. But if a mistake was made in one of our previous groupings, everything else would fall into this. And it's better to write other just in case, and then you can see if any output of other shows up, you know you made a mistake. Because we have put our output in single quotation marks, it will be of character data type. So I've just shown here what each operator means also. So let's run this query in MySQL Workbench. So I'll just open up a new query here, and I'm just going to paste in what was in the slide. So again, with the case statement, you can see it can be minimized as well. Case when. So it's our first column that we're creating in our select table.
Mentiras, te los di yo.
Final output and end
Eres tan
as
poco chulo. Esto
so how many customers fall into
Qué lindo se ve. Ya no me ve.
by our case statement. So I got this one here, but I can change it to our column.
¿Qué le pasó, Cototo?
Nada, me agarré una nalga.
So you can see only 2 people fall into the over 150,000 category, and the majority of people fall into the less than 75,000. So we can check this, but let's just semicolon. Let's show all the columns from the customer table. Let's see how many have a credit limit of over 75,000. Sorry, over 150,000. So yeah, we can see there's only 2. So that's correct. And then if I do run, I'll click into the other query. If I do run it, 60 people fell into the less than 75,000. Nobody falls into the other, which is important. Okay, so in the next video we will cover more of the case statement, and we will use it to create a flag. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so in this section we'll look at a flag, which is created using a case statement. And I often use this to show only 2 possible values. So usually it'll be 1 or 0, where you can make it true or false or yes or no. And when the condition is met, it returns 1, and if it's not met, it will return 0. You can then sum the column if you're returning 1. So in this query, for example, it's creating a flag which displays 1 when an order of motorcycles is more than 40. And we have been able to check if an order was a motorcycle because we joined the order details table with the orders table on the order number. And from there, because the order details table breaks down the order by product, we can then join the products table on the product code. And then we can create our flag. And we do this by adding 2 conditions for the first one, so the quantity ordered to be greater than 40, and the second one, where the product line equals motorcycles. And if both these conditions are met, then we'll return 1. Otherwise, it will return 0, and then we just end as the name of our column. And what we could also do with this query is put it inside a CTE, and then query from that CTE, so that we can sum the flag that we just created to see how many of the sales were over 40 on motorbikes. So let's just run this on MySQL Workbench, and we'll understand it further. So if I open up and paste this query into a new query file, I've just separated out our case statement here. You can see the 2 conditions, and then what the output will be. And then when I run this, so even if less than 40 was ordered, it's going to show 0 as our flag in the column. And then if we go down further, so every time it's cars, it's definitely going to be 0, and then we go to motorbikes, it's only going to show 1 if the quantity ordered was more than 40. And even this one here that is 40 is showing 0 because we did a greater than 40. If you want to include this, you just do an equals greater than or equals to 40. So this is looking at every single order on every page that's in the data. So what we can do from this is make it a CTE. So we'll just name it with main CTE as, and then we'll open and close our brackets. And then from this, we can select any column name we want, such as the order date. And then we can do a sum of this column that we just created, this flag. And we'll just name that. That's the same, ordered over 40 motorcycles, and then create it from the CTE. Now we need to group it by our order date. Okay, so now we can see each day and how many orders there were that were over 40 motorcycles. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. You will get a lot of practice with case statements in our analysis as well, because I'll use them quite often. So in the next lecture, we'll look at row number. So I'll see you there. Hello everyone. So what I wanted to do was show an example of why you might want to use the case statement and create a flag. Another example. So if you remember from our previous example where we were looking at like, so here we have comments from the order table which contain the word negotiate. But maybe we just want to flag these. So let's bring in all our orders, but let's just flag any order that has the word negotiate in the comments. So what we could do, rather than have it in the where clause, which is filtering out every single order that doesn't have negotiate in the comment, we'll add it as a case statement. So I'm going to just delete this. And we'll bring back all the rows, see everything. So a lot of comments don't put anything. So case when, comments like, and then here we can add in our negotiate. Then one, else not end as negotiated. Okay, and then from this, we'll get a new field. And now there's a one beside any customer or order number. And then we can actually use this customer number to find out if that customer negotiated any of their orders. So if we order this, I put that by the customer order. You can see here, customer 124. They don't always negotiate their orders, but they did negotiate one of them. So we can just flag this. We can find this customer has negotiated one order, and we can associate that with this customer number. Okay, so now we have a flag. We can use this. We can also sum it, as I mentioned before. Okay, so let's say we want to have a look at other possible outcomes of what the comments are. So let's create a new, or add a new SQL query. So let's open a new query, and we're going to copy and paste our query from our orders here. And what I want to show is, let's have a look at the distinct comments. So some comments might be the same, but let's just look at the distinct one. So we have check on availability, quite a few here. We know about negotiate, concern, cancel. Well, we know we find cancel because there is also another field which has whether or not the order was cancelled. Disputed. Yeah, we can look up disputed. So let's just show everything. Case when comments like dispute, let's put percent before that as well, if you remember. Has to be in quotation marks. So you can either do it then one, else not end as disputed. Now I'm not just going to flag any. There's a dispute in this comment here, so we've got a flag of one. Now I can order this and see the orders that have a potential dispute. You can see the status here, what actually happened. So you create multiple flags. We have a disputed one, just copy our negotiate, and then we have two flags. Okay, so now we can use two flags to just identify any customers that are disputed or negotiated. Allocators just to sort them. And you can even find anyone like both, so I can see the building that thing. Okay, and if you did want the output of a string, you can also do that. So maybe we don't want to create a flag, we want to create a output of a string that says negotiated order. And then we can add a second condition when comments like dispute. Well, that is the new line. Here we have case when comments like negotiated order. When comments like dispute, then disputed order. Let's see what is in there. Else. Okay. So we can't add an apostrophe with this because it's loading our parentheses. So I'll just change it to no dispute. And as status, I'll just write status 1 because there's already a status field here. So I'll just delete this. Let's just run that query. Okay, now you can see the output is now string order string instead. So it says no dispute. Negotiated order, even though we can't see the negotiated flag, but there's the word negotiated in the comment. We have disputed order. No dispute. Is what most of them say. No dispute or negotiated. We can just change it here as well. And then that's going to change the output. No dispute or negotiated. Okay, so sometimes it's useful to have a string like this output instead. So I hope that example was helpful, and if you do want more examples or if you have any feedback again, just please let me know. I'm happy to receive any reviews or messages, and then you can ask anything in the Q&A as well. I'll see you in the next video. use all the time, and it's important to have a good understanding of. It assigns a sequential number to each row based on a partition of a result set. So in the syntax here, column name 1 is the column which it is going to partition the sequential number by, and you also must order the set by another column. So for example, if we wanted to see each customer's orders and number them all, ordered by the date, we would use this, and have the customer key is column name 1, and the order date is column name 2. So let's look at an example here. In this query, I use the orders table to order each customer's purchases by date. We partition by each customer number and order by the order date. Row number here represents the purchase number the customer is making, since in our row number statement we ordered by the order date. So as you can see from the output here, I have separated each customer number, and we are showing the purchase number, but it starts from 1 again once you see the new customer number. But if we added in the order details table and join customers as well to get the customer name, it's broken down by product, so you see purchase number more often. Let's bring this query into MySQL Workbench. Okay, so I've just opened up a new query file, and I'll paste in our query here. So you can see the very last column is our row number column, and we are partitioning by the customer number, ordering by the order date. And this comes from the orders table. We join the order details and we join the customer date. So if I run this query, we do have many purchase numbers because it's broken down by product code. So we would actually need to remove the product code, which comes from our order details table, and we also need to remove this join. And then if we run this, we will just see it broken down by order date and order number. But we don't know which products were ordered, but we're actually counting how many purchases the customer made. So I can just control and say that. I do want to bring it back in, and I'll just run it again. One other thing I want to show you is that we can break this down and partition it by the order number also. So if we do break it down by the order number, so I'll just specify that this is T1.order number. Then if you look at the purchase number here for alpha contact, you'll see it starts again once the new order starts. So rather than showing the purchase number, it's actually numbering the products that were purchased inside the order, and it starts again from 1 when the new order number starts. So I'm again just going to remove the product code from this query and the join into order details. And I'll just run it again. Oh, I'm going to remove the order number from the partition as well, just because it's going to show 1 now for everything. And when I run that, now we're having each order be numbered. And what I want to show is, if we wanted to see, for example, each customer's second purchase date, you think we could just add in a where purchase number equals 2, but we can't actually do that because window functions haven't been calculated yet. So we would need to put this into a subquery or CTE and then query from it. So what we can do is just write with main CTE as, and now we're turning this output into CTE. So now we'll just do a select star from main CTE, and we're going to have the exact same output, but we'll be able to then add in a where condition on the row number function. So where purchase number equals 2. Now we're going to see each customer's order date for their second purchase. So again, we will cover row number in more detail whenever we're doing analysis and looking at questions. So in the next video, we will look at lead and lag. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so in this video, we're going to look over 2 more window functions, lead and lag. So the first one we'll look at is lead, and it is used to access data in the next row of ordered output. And you can see the syntax here, it's very similar to row number, but rather than row number, we use lead, and we insert the column name in brackets. And then the rest is very similar to row number, where it's over partitioned by the column that we are partitioning our result set by, and then we order by the column, which would usually be a date. So in this example, here you can see we're showing the customer number, payment date, the amount, and then we're showing the amount that was paid next time. So lead of the amount over partitioned by each customer number and order by the payment date. And you can see the output here. So for customer number 103, the last one is always going to be null because there was no next payment. For the first one here, you can see they paid $14,571 on the 5th of June 2003, and the next payment in 2004 was for $6,066. But we can display this on the same row and create a column, and we call it next payment. And then we can actually create a calculation showing the difference between these if we wanted to. So if I open up my SQL Workbench and open a new query, I'll just paste this in. Separate out the lead calculation, so it's the final one again. So again, we just need to put the column that we're showing next inside brackets after lead. So if we run this, again, we're just going to see in the output, we're going to have a few nulls because there was no next payment. But it's very useful to, if we want to see what the payment was next time, and we can see it in the same row. But if we wanted to see the customer's previous payment in the same row, that's where we would use lag. So here you can see the syntax is the exact same. We just replace lead with lag. And I just wrote it in the same query, but the output is just different, where it's going to show the previous amount on the new column that we created, and every null value will be in the first row for each customer. So again, back in MySQL Workbench, if I just change this from lead to lag, and then just name it previous payment, it's essentially just going to move everything down and bring our null up to be the first payment. And now we can create another column. So we actually need to, so we couldn't create the column until it's been calculated, so we'll need again to make this a CTE first, or a subquery, but I do prefer CTEs. So we'll just name it CTE main, and then I'll do a select star, and then we'll create a calculation where it's amount minus previous payment, and we'll name that as difference from our CTE main. So now we can see the difference. So the amount of this payment on the 19th of the 10th for this customer was 6,000. Their previous payment was 14,000, so we can then calculate that this payment was $8,000 less than their previous payment. Okay, so in the next video, we'll get you to answer one question on your own. so now for this exercise, just need to display the order date, order number, sales rep, employee number for each sales rep in the second order. So for this question, you'll need to use the orders table, customers table, and the employees table. This will be for row number. So I'll pause the video now and give you the answer next. Okay, hopefully you got on okay with that one. So for this question, as I mentioned, we want to use the orders table. So the first thing I'll do is just display all our columns from the orders table. And because we want to show the order number, order date, and sales rep, employee number, if we look at our tables, we need to bring in our customers table because you can see it has a sales rep, employee number. And then if we can join the employees table on this. So the employees table has got the employee number, which will match the sales rep, employee number. So I'll just name this T1, and what we'll do is we'll just inner join our customers table. T2 on T1 dot customer number. Dot customer number. Let's just run that first. And then all our customer data is on the right hand side here. So this has the sales rep, employee number. So now we can join our sales rep table. Or sorry, our employees table. So then T3 on T2 dot sales rep, employee number equals T3 dot employee number. Okay, so now this will have all the columns that we need. So rather than bring back everything, I just want to show the order date, the order number, and then sales rep, employee number. The first one is these three columns. Okay, so we have our sales rep, employee number, and all the orders that they all made, and all the dates that they made those orders. So to show each sales rep's second order, we want to use row number and number each order date, depending on the date it was made. So to do that, I'll just add one column, and then I'll just start off with our row number over partition by. So we're going to want to partition it by each sales rep order number. Sorry, sales rep employee number. So I'll just copy that down, and then we order by the order date. And then we'll just name that as rep order number. Okay, so now we can see the sales rep, for example, 1165, made 34 orders. And you can see they're ordered by each order date. So now we can get their second order number for everyone here. But as you know, we can't just add a where rep order number equals to. We have to put this into a CTE. So to do that, with CTE as and then open and close brackets. And now we'll just do a select start from CTE where rep order number equals to. Okay, now we have each sales rep and their second order number. Okay, so well done if you got that. So that's it for window functions. And in the next section, we'll start looking at our date functions. So I'll see you later. Some date functions and how they're used. So let's look at year, month, and day first. If I wanted to extract a year, month, or day from a date field, we can put the column name inside brackets, which have the date part you want to extract from the column. So in this example, we're showing the date broken down by year, month, and day. This is for the order date. And you can see in the output how it breaks it down then and creates a column just showing the year, or the month number, or the day number. So if we wanted to show today's date, we just type now, open and close brackets. But I want to cover date diff, another commonly used function that I would use quite often. And the syntax is just date diff, open brackets, and then the two columns, they both have to be date columns, if you want to show the difference in days between. So let's look at an example here. So here we are calculating the days between the order date and the required date. So let's run this in my SQL workbench. Before I run it though, I just want to show the way how you show today's date. So if we just write select now, open and close brackets, that will display the date now. And we can use this inside the date diff function if we want to show the days between a date column and the current date. But now I'll just paste in the query I showed you in the slide, and we have a date diff between the required date and the order date. So for each order number, we are displaying the days until they are required. We can also just show these dates as individual columns. So I'll just copy and paste them in. And if we run that, you can see this order number 10100 required on the 13th of January, ordered on the 6th, so that is 7 days between. What I could also do here is just change the required date to now, and that will just show the difference between the order date and the current date. Now this is 20 years, so it's going to be quite a lot of days, but I just want to show it for an example. But what we could actually do here is divide that by 365, and then we'll have the years. So you can see here, if I just write divide by 365, it will display it as 20, just over 20 years. So you can also add days, months, or years from any date column using the date add function. And the syntax just looks like this. So it's date add, open brackets, and then the first input is your date column, followed by a comma, and then we write interval, and then the value in unit. So in this example, you can see we write interval 1 year, and that will add 1 year onto the required date. Date sub, on the other hand, will subtract days, months, or years from any date column. So it follows the same syntax as date add. We just input the date column, interval, and then the value in unit. So we can also input our own date here. So you can see I've shown it as 2006, the 1st of January. It just has to be in double quotation marks, and then we're subtracting 1 year from this. So let's look at an example. Okay, so I'll just open up a new query here, and let's just show all the columns from the orders table again. Because we know it has some date columns, so let's just keep all the columns, but we'll add more down afterwards. So we'll add 2 more. We'll add 1 year to the order date. So date underscore add, and then it'll be our date column, comma, interval, 1 year. And then we will name it 1 year after. And we can add in another one, so we'll subtract this time, so date sub from our order date. Interval, and let's do 2 months. 2 months. We don't write the S, sorry, so 2 months. Goes back, and we'll name that as so 1 year after the order date, we have 2 months before. And in the next section, we will start looking at our string functions. So we'll see you there. Hi everyone, so now we're going to cover these 3 topics: cast, substring, and concat, which is short for concatenate. So cast is used to change the data type of a column. It's common to have to do these when joining tables together, where one key is an integer or a bar chart, and other is a comma. So you can see here the example. I've casted the payment date, which is currently a date data type, and we're casting it as a date time so that it displays a timestamp as well. So I'll run that on my SQL workbench. I'm also going to add a document that goes through all the data types, just so you understand them, because it's quite important to understand different data types. It can cause errors in your query. So I'll just select start from orders. I'll do it from payments. And we'll cast this payment date as a date time. So we'll just add an extra column. And enter cast, open brackets. And it will be payment date. As, and then we enter what we want the data type to be. So date time. And we'll just name it as payment time. Okay, so you can see what it's done now. It's added in a timestamp. So since there was no timestamp, it's automatically just going to be 0, 0. Okay, so the next topic we'll cover is substring. So you can see it returns a specified length of any string column you input. So the syntax looks like select substring, open bracket, then we enter our column name, where we want to start from, and the length that we want to display. So it's best to look at an example. If we select the substring of the payment date, starting from 1, and we only want to return 7 characters, this will be the output. So we're starting from the first character and displaying 7. It's going to return 2004-10, because that is 7 characters, and we could use this as a month key. So if we run this example here, you can see it in my SQL workbench, the payment date, and then the month. And say we started from the 6th character, only displayed 5. It would be the month and day. So I'll just write 6 and 5, and it's going to be month, day. And then you can see there, that's the 19th of October. It's quite hard to read, so it wouldn't be very valuable. I hope it helps you understand why we would use substring. Let's look at another example. Let's look at the customer's table. See what string columns we have in there. You can see we have a column. So let's add a new column. Starting from 1, and we'll just return 2. This name is code, or this code. So then you can see it's only returning the first 3 letters, and we're just giving it each country a code. This is pretty common to use as well. So the final topic we'll look at in this video is concat. So as I mentioned, it's short for concatenate, and it's used to merge 2 or more columns together. So if you see in the syntax here again, it's just concat, open brackets, and the columns that you want to merge followed by a comma. So in this example, we're putting the employee's first and last name together. You'll notice we've also entered quotation marks with a space in the middle. This is just to separate first and last name, otherwise they would be together. So you can see the output here as the full name. Just merges the first and last name together. Okay, so let's practice that a little bit. We'll just show all the columns from the customer's table, and we will merge the first and last name. So, okay, we'll just make one column. Pick anything you want to merge. You can merge the city and the company if you like. Okay, let's do the city and the company. So we'll show the customer name, and then concat, city, comma. So I'm actually going to just do without space. We'll name the column city company. So you can see they just merged together. There's no space in between them. So that's why we need to just add a quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and then comma. And then now you can see it's on space. Or you could even put this as a dash. It's really a personal preference. Okay, so that is the final topic for this video. So I'll see you in the next video. Hi, and welcome back everyone. So in this video, we're going to look into some key concepts that every data analyst and scientist must know to summarize and understand their data effectively. So descriptive statistics are fundamental in helping us make sense of large data sets and guide us towards deeper insights. And they really do form the foundation for more advanced analytics techniques. Okay, so descriptive statistics are essentially tools to summarize and describe and gain initial insights from data sets. And as a data analyst or scientist, you'll frequently use these to provide an overview of your data before performing deeper analysis or building models. So think of descriptive statistics as your first step to understand what your data is actually telling you. And they help you summarize key features like the average values and spread of your data and the most common occurrences. And then by calculating these simple metrics like the mean, the median, or the mode, and the range, you'll be able to get a clear picture of your data set's characteristics, and this can help us understand and guide us towards the next steps of our analysis. So let's just start off with the mean, or the average. So the mean is calculated, it just sums all the data points and divides it by the number of points. And it's one of the simplest and most commonly used measures of central tendency. As a data analyst or a data scientist, you'll use the mean to give stakeholders an idea of what a typical value looks like in the data set. So for example, if you're looking at sales data, calculating the mean sales value gives us a benchmark for what is considered normal. But keep in mind that it is sensitive to outliers, so extremely high or low values can skew it. So that's why I've added this example of house prices. So if we have house prices of say 100,000, 300,000, 350 and 400,000, and then also a house which is $1 million, whenever we calculate the mean, we get 430,000 because we've actually summed all of these together and divided it by 5, which is the number of data points in this particular example. But as you can see, this $1 million value, it really pulls the average up. So this is why it's very important to be mindful of outliers like this whenever we interpret the mean. So what we'll look at next then would be the median. And this is the middle value of a sorted data set. And it's incredibly useful when your data is skewed or it contains outliers. As a data analyst or a data scientist, you'll often find that the median is more representative than the mean, especially in cases like salary analysis where there may be some outliers. So if we look at this example here, we have some salaries, 120, 50, 70, 1 million. So we have like a CEO salary, for example, 75, 60, and $100,000. And then if we actually sorted this data set from lowest to highest, we will take the middle value, and that would be our median. So while the mean salary would be much higher here due to the $1 million, the median is a better reflection of the typical salary that a worker here in this data set would earn. Okay, and the final example then that we'll look at in this particular video is the mode. So the mode is representing the most frequent value in the data set. And it's particularly useful for categorical data, or when you're trying to identify the most common observation. The data analysts and data scientists might use this to figure out the most frequently purchased product or the most common customer location. So you can look at that example data set there. We have some prices, $120, $50, $70, $120, $75, $60, and $120. So this could be the value of a cart or the total amount spent online in the store. We sort that, but we don't even have to sort it, but it makes it easier to actually find the mode. You can see that the mode is $120 because it appears most often. And while the mean or the median would provide other insights, this mode would show that $120 is the most frequent price point, and it would give us a sense of the most common purchase value from our customers. And this could be useful in real-world context for marketing. You could run ads that emphasize $120 price point because it's proven to resonate with most customers. Or we could use it in a pricing strategy because we can see that customers will spend $120. So we could offer sales brochures or discounts that may help to bring the price to this point because customers are comfortable spending it. There obviously would be other factors to consider when coming to that conclusion, but it is just a simple example to give us an idea of what the mode is and why it can be useful. Okay, so that is it for this video, but in the next video we will continue on with descriptive statistics. In this video, we're just going to quickly look at range and why it can be useful for a business as well. And we'll have a look at an example. So it measures the variability by calculating the difference between the highest and the lowest value in a data set. So it's quite simple, but it's a very useful measure to understand the spread of the data. So if we have a look at this simple example here. We have some student test scores, so 45, 68, 72, 89, and 98. So the range is pretty simple here. It's just 98 minus 45, so it's 53. And this could tell us that there's a significant gap in the test scores, which could indicate a need for further analysis, and perhaps look into why certain students are maybe struggling while others are excelling. And if we look at a simple practical example here in SQL, so I just looked at the order details table and I brought in each unique order number and the order value of those orders. So we have quite a few orders here, but we can calculate the range here. So I will use this. I'll create a CTE with this. So I'll just name it main CTE, and then we will query that CTE by just bringing back the minimum order value, the max order value, and then we can calculate the range from this. So the range will be the max order value minus the minimum order value. So I'll just need to name these as well. So I'll name that range, I'll name this highest order, and I'll name this lowest. Okay, and then these are all aggregated calculations, so we don't need to provide any fields. So we need to do this from main CTE. Okay, and because range is actually a keyword in SQL, we may need to just put it inside double quotes whenever we're actually naming it, or we could just name it something else. So if possible, there's a keyword in SQL to calculate the range, but I just want to break it down just to easily understand. So we're actually going to make the calculation ourselves. Okay, so we execute this, we have our lowest order and our highest order. You can see by this range that there is quite a large difference here, and it's a high range. So this could suggest that customers are placing very different order sizes. If this is a smaller number, we would know that most orders are of a similar size. And I could also suggest, this large range could suggest the presence of different types of customers, like small retail buyers compared to bulk buyers and companies that may order from this classic models business. Okay, but there are some limitations. There may be outliers which would create a very high range, but it is worth covering, and it can be a useful statistic just to look at before actually analysing data. So in this video, we're going to understand what variance is and how it can be useful in data analysis. So variance measures how much the data points in a data set deviate from the mean, and it's expressed in squared units. So it's useful when assessing data dispersion. So in fields like financial analysis, variance will really help understand risk. And a high variance will indicate greater spread and potentially higher risk, whereas lower variance suggests that the data points are closely aligned with the mean and there's less risk. So let's have a look at an example. We look at these stock prices. So stock prices would be a good example to look at. We have 5 stock prices here. Now we can calculate the variance well, we first need to calculate the mean by adding them all together and dividing it by the number of stock prices, so 5 in this case. And then we need to subtract each stock price from the mean and square that. So by squaring it, we actually remove the negative. We make it an absolute value. So if you look at the right-hand side of the calculation, minus 7 squared will equal 49, which is what we use in our calculation. So we add all these together and divide it by 4. So we actually subtract 1 from the amount of stocks that we're actually analysing here. So usually you would think you would divide it by 5, but we're actually subtracting 1 and dividing it by 4. So the result here is 22. And this will show then how spread out the data points are from the mean on average. So this will bring us on to standard deviation. And what standard deviation is, it's essentially just the square root of the variance. So this is a better way to actually measure the spread, and it's very simple here in this case. We're actually just square rooting 22, and then this would mean the standard deviation is 4.69. And to understand better what this is actually telling us, we could look at the stock prices, and if we look at, say, the mean of those stock prices, which is 57, 4.69 means that on average the stock prices tend to deviate from this mean by plus or minus 4.69. And so it really just gives us an idea of how much fluctuation or spread we can expect in stock prices. And what we could do with the standard deviation, so let's just look at an example here. If we were to want to compare stock prices for 1 week with stock prices for the same company for another week, we could use the standard deviation just to see which week was more volatile. So in the first week, we have the same stock example that we were looking at previously. But week 2, let's say we have these 5 prices, and we have a slightly higher mean, but we can calculate then the variance and the standard deviation by using this mean. So the variance is 56.3, and the standard deviation is 7.5. So this is higher than the standard deviation for week 1, which means that it was a more volatile week for this particular stock. So it would have been higher risk. Hi, welcome back everyone. So now we're just going to have a quick tutorial on frequency distributions in data analysis. So this helps us organize and summarize data, uncover patterns, and just gain valuable insights. So frequency distributions, they provide a structured way to organize data, and they summarize the frequency of various values in a data set. And this enables us to visualize and understand the distribution of data points effectively. And there are 2 different types. There's ungrouped and grouped frequency distributions. So ungrouped, this type of distribution is used where we want to show the frequency of each individual value in a data set. And it's best suited for data sets with a limited number of unique values. So in this example, we want to look at the number of students in each grade level at a school. So in this case, we would create an ungrouped frequency distribution to show how many students there are in each grade. But for grouped frequency distributions, these are used when we have a large number of unique values in our data set. For example, ages. These could be up to 100. So in this case, we may want to group these into groups of 10, for example, 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and so on. So this is an example of ungrouped frequency distribution that we mentioned, where we have grade level, and then we also have the number of students. And you can see here, grade 6 has 10 students, grade 9 has the highest number with 15, and grade 8 has the least with 8. And this can be visualized pretty simply, and you can, just by a bar chart, and you can see straight away that grade level 9 has the highest number of students. Okay, so we wanted to introduce a larger data set which has ages of people in a city, for example. This would be a good example where we actually want to group the frequency distribution. So we could group them into age buckets of 0 to 10, 11 to 20, as I mentioned before. So what we would need to do first is actually determine our intervals, the number and size of intervals that we want. Then we want to count the frequencies within these intervals, and then we can present this data in a table or a chart. So let's look at this in an example. So here we have age group 0 to 10, and the amount of people that fall into that age group is 25. And then with the bar chart here, you can see straight away that 11 to 20 is the age group with the most amount of people, and the fewest is 61 and over. But if you could imagine what this bar chart would look like if we didn't actually group this, and we have a certain amount of people under each age from 0 to over 61, then we're going to have more than 61 bars, and it would just look terrible, and it would be very hard to actually get some insights from it. So this is why grouping this would be a much better idea. Okay, so this is just a short video, but it is important to understand frequency distribution and why we would want to sometimes group the values of a column, and sometimes we would. So we will get more practice with this throughout the course. Hello everyone. Okay, so now we're going to understand variables and why they're used in data analysis. So let's look at the different types first. They're categorized into 2 main types, quantitative and qualitative. So quantitative variables are variables that are numerical and measured on a numeric scale, and they can be discrete or continuous. So we'll look at the different examples of that next, but discrete is essentially a finite number of values, and continuous is infinite. Okay, and qualitative variables or categorical variables describe characteristics or qualities that cannot be measured numerically. So when we look at discrete variables, they represent quantities that can be counted in whole numbers, and they have a finite number of values within a specific range. So if you look at these 3 examples, number of students in a classroom or school, this is a finite number. For cars in a parking lot, you can count how many cars there are parked in the lot. How many goals are scored in a soccer or football or basketball game. But in comparison, whenever you look at continuous variables, these will be infinite values within a specific range. So they can be measured to any level of precision, depending on the measuring instrument used. So look at these 3 different examples here, very common examples: height, weight, and temperature. So a person's height can be measured to the nearest inch, centimeter, or even millimeter. The weight can be measured in pounds, kilos, or grams, and it can be measured to a high degree of precision as well using a digital scale. And then the final example of a continuous variable here is just the temperature. You think this is infinite, it can go as high or low as possible, and it can be measured at different types like Celsius, Fahrenheit, or Kelvin. Okay, but next we'll look at qualitative or categorical variables, which describe the characteristics or qualities that cannot be measured numerically. So there are 2 different types of qualitative variables. There's nominal variables or ordinal variables. So nominal variables represent categories with no inherent ordering. So examples would be different types of hair colors, different colors, or different types of fruit. Ordinal variables, on the other hand, they have a meaningful order, but no consistent difference between the categories. So if you think of an example like satisfaction ratings or educational levels, satisfaction ratings would be ordered, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. So again, these are the 2 examples I was mentioning. For hair color, we can have blonde or brown, black, red, or grey. These are categories or types of fruit. But when we look at these examples of ordinal variables, So they're representing categories, but they have a meaningful order, even though there's no consistent difference between the categories. So look at the satisfaction ratings. We have 5 different categories here. They do have a meaningful order. Very dissatisfied is the lowest, and very satisfied is the highest. And the same with educational levels here. We have a doctorate, which would be the highest, or a high school diploma, which would be the lowest. Okay, so let's have a look at this example. We have this data set, which shows the employee details of 5 employees. So we have a unique identifier, an employee ID. Then we have the department, the salary, the work experience in years, performance rating, and the weekly working hours. So we're going to identify the categorical nominal variable. In this case, it would be the department, because it's representing categories without any order. So each employee is assigned to a department like sales or HR, but the order of the department doesn't matter. Then we have the ordinal variable, which in this case is the performance rating, because it has a meaningful order or ranking, with 1 being the lowest, and the highest being 5. Okay, then we have the discrete numerical variable, and in this case, it's work experience. So it's going to be in whole numbers, in years. And because it's represented by countable values, in this case, it's going to be discrete numerical variable, and it's a whole number. But on the other hand, we have a continuous numerical variables. We have 2 here. We have the salary and the weekly working hours. And these are continuous because they can take on any value within the range, and they'll also allow for fractional values. So here, salary is measured in dollars, and this could be infinite. And similarly, working hours can be measured precisely, like 37.5 hours. Okay, so we're going to work a lot with these different types of variables throughout the course. Hi everyone, so first thing we're going to do for this section is download Microsoft Excel. So I'm just on the Microsoft website here, and you'll see there's an option for Excel. If you just type into Google download Microsoft Excel, this will be the first page you will see. And if you don't want to buy it, you can see there is an option to try for free for home. And this will let you try it for 1 month for free. Now you will need to enter a credit or debit card. So if you don't want to keep using it, you would have to remember to cancel it, otherwise you would be charged. So if I just go back to the main page and go to plans and pricing. Okay, so it's automatically showing for business, but if I just change this for home. So we can change it to paid monthly. And you can see what the charge would be if we only wanted to pay for 1 month. So this is if you want to keep it after your free trial, for example. But if you're just going to use a free trial, you can just follow the steps, try 1 month free, and then you'll just need to give your details. Okay, so I can't do it because I've already got Excel, but yeah, you will need to follow the steps and potentially create an account to download it. And then once you do have Microsoft Excel, you can just go to Google, or even if you just start typing in your bar. So I've already got it saved here. So this is the address, kaggle.com/datasets/shivamb/show. So I can add a document that has this name on it, so that you can just follow it. This will allow us to download your Netflix dataset. So if I just click enter on it, you can see we have the option to download it here. Top right. So I'm just going to click download. Well, you will need to create a Kaggle account. So I'm just going to sign into my account. Okay, so I've just signed in. So now I'll be able to download it. So it will be a zip file. So I'll just open it in there. So depending on what unzipping software you have, I use 7-zip. It's a free option if you wanted to download it as well to extract your files. So you can just extract here or extract to different places you want. So I'll just extract mine to my desktop. Yeah, I'll just go into my desktop. So then my desktop. And now if I open the folder, we have our spreadsheet. So let's just open it quickly. Okay, so now you can see we have all our files. So in the next video, we will start covering some Excel topics and cleaning this data. So I'll see you there. Hi everyone, so in this video we'll get started working with our Excel Netflix spreadsheet. Before we just start that, I want to go over quickly the shortcuts that I use very commonly. So I've added in a sheet downloaded from the Microsoft website, and it's a cheat sheet for Excel shortcuts. Now, there is a lot in here, but rather than go through them all, I wanted to show you some of the shortcuts that I would commonly use. So let's just try some of these in our Netflix spreadsheet. So I've opened up our spreadsheet here. Now the columns are all quite small, so if we just click on the top left-hand cell, and then you'll see a black 4-shaped arrow like this. Whenever you hover over any cell, to the right-hand side of it, just double-click. It will just make each cell bigger. Okay, now you can't see everything in one sheet unless you zoom out. So you can zoom out by holding Control and scrolling your wheel, or on the bottom right-hand side here. So I'm just going to make my spreadsheet a little bit smaller. You don't have to do this. I just want to do it to show which shortcuts that I'm working through. So if we click on any cell here, I'll just click on cell A1. Hold Control and Shift, and hit End. You can see it brings us to the very right-hand side and bottom of our spreadsheet, only where there's data. Then if you just hit Control and Home, it's going to bring us back to cell A1. And then just by holding Shift and clicking our arrow keys, it's just going to highlight the individual cells. So I'm going right, down, left, up. The next cell I would commonly use, so we did cover Control and Home, but if we select Control and N, you can see it brings us to that same last cell, but it doesn't highlight the cells. So click Control and Home again, it brings us back to A1. Control and down will bring us to the same column, but the very last cell. Control and up will bring us back up to the first one. Control and right will bring us to the end of the row. Control and left will bring us back. So you can also add a new sheet in Excel by clicking this plus icon at the bottom, and we'll bring a new sheet. And we can also rename it. So I'll just right-click it and rename Test, and I'll just put A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, just as an example here. So we have 2 sheets that we can now take between. But rather than clicking between them, we can hold Control and select Page Up, and it will bring us up to the other one. And Page Down will bring us back to the second sheet. And then we can just right-click and delete our test sheet. So click anywhere in the spreadsheet as well. Control and A will highlight all the cells that have data in it. Control and B could make it all bold. Click it again to make it back to normal. Control and C will copy the current selection. So now you can see that it's been highlighted and copied. But we can just double click away to uncopy it. Control and S will save our workbook. You can see it as saved here. Or you can just click File and Save. And if you want to rename it, you can save it as something else. Click any cell here, control U, but underline. So these bold and underline and italic buttons are at the top here, but I do often just use shortcuts. And if I do hit Control and A again, Control and C, let's open a new sheet. Control and V would paste that in. So I'll just again delete that. So Control and W will close the workbook. And Control and X will just cut the data in the cell, and then you can Control and V it somewhere else if you want. And the final two I just covered is Control and Y and Control and Z. So these are just undo or redo actions. So say we accidentally deleted a cell, I click away, I can hit Control and Z, and it will just undo that action. And then I hit Control and Y, and it will redo it. But I do use Control and Z very often. Okay, so that is it for our shortcuts. In the next video, we can start cleaning this data set. So I'll see you in the next video. Hi everyone, so now we're just going to do a little bit of cleaning up this data set. So if you open up your Netflix titles and you just drag over to the description, quite a long field, there's a lot of data in here. So what I want to do is just cut this column and paste it into a dump sheet. So if we just highlight it all, right click and cut, and just open a new sheet here, and we'll just paste it in. So the description will be in its own sheet. And what we can do is just right click, rename, and we'll just rename it as description. So the next thing I'd like to do, so you can see here director for example, or there's a few columns, cast. It just has many fields inside it. And I want to split these. So we want it to look a bit more like this. If you look at this third example here on row number 4, I would prefer to have the show ID and each cast member. So we won't do that in Excel, but we'll do the first step towards it in Excel and then finish it in MySQL Workbench. So what we can do is I'm going to just highlight the whole column, Control and X, or cut, so you can right click and cut it. I'll just paste it into the next available column. So we can just right click and paste. And from here, you'll see now that this cell is still available. It's just empty, so we can just delete this column. I'll go back to where we were. So now what we can do again, just highlight the whole column. And on the data pane, you'll see an option on the right hand side here that says text of columns. So what this is going to do is split each cast member here into its own column. So you just need to, rather than fix width, we'll just select delimited. Next. And you may have tick tab here, but untick tab and we'll tick comma. So that means it will split them after each comma. See a preview here below. So if we just click next. Yep, keep our destination. Okay, we'll go past it. Finish. I'm going to give each cast member its own column for each show. So you may just, you can highlight them all and just double click just to make it a bit bigger. Go back. We need to give each column a name. So I'm just going to name this first one cast _1. And then if we just, on the bottom right hand side of the cell, you'll see the arrow changes. If we just drag it then across, you'll see that it will number each cast then. But you will notice an issue in that some movies will have more cast numbers than others. If we drag to the right and scroll down, for example, you'll see that we don't know where it will end. So what we can do is just click on any cell. And if you remember our Control and End shortcut, it will bring us to the last cell where there's data. So you can see here the column BH is where the last cast member will show up. So there's a movie with many cast members in the description. So it could be anywhere. I'll just drag up. And you can see that sometimes data will appear, but most of the time it won't. Okay, I think we just went past it. So if we just go on up to the top, we know that we want to now bring a column name until we come to cell BH, until we come to column BH. So we can click back in our cast 19, highlight the bottom right hand side of the cell, and then we'll drag it across to BH. So that'll bring us to 50, exactly. So I'll just save mine as well. Get into the habit of just continuously saving your work. So now I'll just drag back to the left hand side. And you can see there are more columns. So there is a director column which has multiple entries. So we have director, country, and listed in, which has multiple entries. So what I would like you to do is try this on your own. You can repeat the process that we just did for director, country, and listed in. Just remember to bring it over to the right hand side after our past 50. And then in the next video, I will do it again, just in case you did have any issues. So if you do want to just skip trying it yourself, and you can go straight to the next video. So I'll see you in the next video. Welcome back everyone. So hopefully you got on okay with that if you did try it. What we're going to do is our director column, X, our country column, and our listed in column. So let's start with the directors one. So I'm just going to highlight the whole column, right click and cut. And then drag to the very right hand side. Just paste it into the first available column. Again highlight, and then on the data pane, I'll select text to columns. Split by comma. I'm just going to separate them all. So I don't think there'll be as many columns for this as there was for cast. If I hit Control and N, brings us to BU. Okay. I'm just going to name this director _1. Drag it across to BU. Okay. So that's the directors one done. Just need to remember to delete the column that we just cut from as well. Okay, so now we'll just do the same for country. Control and X. Control and D. Let's get our text column. Control and End. Okay, so we're just going to see text this time. just highlight all the cells as well and just double click, and that will just make the size the same. Okay, so I'll just go back to the columns then. And that is the last part for our text columns. So what we need to do next, you'll notice, that all these columns start with a blank, as you can see. So in the next video, we'll go over the trim function that will tidy that up for us. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so now I'm just going to trim our columns that we just pasted and split. But first I just want you to, in our description tab, so you can just highlight it, right click, and insert. And it's going to just insert a new column to the left hand side. And what we need to do is just copy the show ID across. So if you just hold Control Shift and down, Control and C, or you can right click and copy it all. We'll just paste it in. So you can just right click, paste values, or just paste. So now we've just created a relationship between the descriptions tab and the titles tab. And they can be joined together once we import it into MySQL Workbench. They can be joined on the season, or show ID. Okay, so next we are going to trim. We'll start with our cast. So we're going to do this in a new sheet again. So if you just click the plus icon, and we'll just rename it cast. So I just want to quickly go over what the trim calculation does. So it removes unwanted blank spaces from a cell without removing spaces in between the words. So it's quite a simple calculation. You just enter equals trim, open brackets, and then we enter our cell number, and then close brackets. Okay, so back in our cast tab, what we're going to do, in cell B1, we're just going to click into it and start entering our formula equals trim. You can see it comes up with an option, and then Excel will tell us what the formula is, because it's just the text value that we want to trim. So if we click into our Netflix titles sheet and then go up to we'll do it straight from cast 1. So you just click into the cell, and then close brackets, and hit enter. You'll see that it copies cast 1 across. So now we want to copy everything, right from cast 1 to cast 50, down to the bottom row. So we can find our bottom row by going back to Netflix titles. We'll scroll down, and we'll see it's number 8808. So now what we can do is, while ensuring cell B1 is highlighted, we click into the name box, and we just change this to B8808, and then while holding in shift, we hit enter, and it'll bring us down to B8808. Then without doing anything, we select F2 on our keyboard, and it will bring us back up, and now it's brought us into the calculation. So now while holding control, you can just hit enter, and it's going to autofill everything, and it will take into account the blanks. So we'll just leave them blank, but now you can see everything is trimmed. There's no leading blank before or after. So now what we can do, we'll go back to cell B1, and we'll just, while holding control and shift, click down, then we can copy everything across. So you don't need to hold anything in your keyboard, we'll just hover over the bottom right corner of the cell until the arrow changes, and then we'll drag it across. So we know there are 50 cast members in the longest movie, so the movie with the most cast members, so we'll just drag this across. It would be AY. And then if you scroll up, you can see that will bring us to cast 50. But we can actually just trim all our rows now. So if we scroll up in our Netflix titles sheet, we can go across and do our directors, which will be 12, our countries, which will be 12, and our listed in. So that will be 27 more columns. So if we just click away, and then go back into our cast 50 cell, hold control and shift, and hit down on our keyboard to bring us to the bottom, we can just copy these across 27 more columns. So I think that would bring us to P, Z. Let's check. Okay, we need to go one more. CA. Okay, so now we have copied across all the text and columns that we did in the previous videos, and we have trimmed them. So from here, so now I wanted to leave cell A1, column A1 available to paste in our show IDs. So again, we'll just control shift and down and copy this, and we'll just bring it into this column A1. I want to keep this as our cast. But first we'll just need to click into A1, control shift and end, so that we're copying every single cell. So they all still have the calculation equals trim, but we just want to paste them in as values. So you can hold control and C just to copy every single cell. Go back up to cell A1, right click into it, and you'll see the option to paste the values. So if we click this, it's going to remove the calculation. Okay, so now just double click away. So now some show IDs don't have any cast, unfortunately, in the status set, but it is what we have to work with. So now we'll drag across to the right, and we can bring our directors and our countries into their own sheets. So let's just add a new sheet, and we'll rename it directors, and we'll just cut all of these and paste them into cell B1 again. And do the same for, so again, we just want to delete these. Do the same for country. I'll just rename that sheet country. And list it in. Okay, and then I'll just paste them in. I'll just delete these columns. Okay, so I'll just copy from our cast show ID again, and we'll just need to bring this into every sheet that we just created. So now they're all related, show ID, all these sheets. Alright. Okay, so the last thing we just need to do is to go back into our Netflix titles data, and we just need to delete the columns from cast 1 onwards, because we don't need these anymore. We've got them all in their own sheets, and they're all related now on show ID. So just control shift and then it'll again bring us to the last cell, and we can just click delete. And now we only have these 7 columns in our Netflix title sheet. Okay, so that is it for trim. In the next video, we will go over some calculations in our Netflix titles data. We'll see you in the next video. Okay, welcome back everyone. So in this video, we're just going to go over short numbering right now. sort and filter option. So if we click into duration type, for example, click filter, it's going to add a drop down arrow to each column name. So for duration type, we can filter it to only show minutes. We don't want to include blank. So now it's only going to show minutes, and you can see the cells will jump from 2 to 8, for example, because it will have types in between where it's a season. So we could use this then to copy across to other sheets if we wanted. But we're just going to keep the filter, and then let's sort them by duration. So on the duration drop down arrow, you can see there's an option to sort from largest to smallest or smallest to largest. So we can see that the longest movie is 312 minutes long, and that is Black Mirror Bandersnatch. And then if you wanted to remove the filters, you can just unclick the filter button at the top. Okay, so that is it for sort and filter, pretty straightforward. So in the next video we'll start with some calculations. Hi, welcome back everyone. So the first 4 calculations I just wanted to cover off were sum, average, max and min. So they are all pretty straightforward. They're very similar in that you just enter equals and the calculation name, open brackets, and then we just highlight the cells that we want to sum, or we want to display the max value in, and then close our brackets. So let's just try this in some template palette. Okay, so let's just perform some of those calculations in our duration column in the Netflix files sheet. So let's just filter it first, and we'll only show the seasons, the TV shows. We're going to be the movies. And what we can do is copy across our column G. So hold Control Shift and down, and then I'll just copy all of this, and we'll paste it into column I. So now if we calculate it on column I, it won't include the TV shows where it's just 1 or 2 sheets. But if we haven't performed the calculation here, even though it's filtered, it's going to include the hidden rows. So we are going to delete these columns after, we're just using it now for testing purposes. So in J2, we're just going to enter equals sum, open brackets, click into I2, Control Shift and down, close our brackets, and then enter. We can see 610 minutes. It's how long all the movies are in the Netflix. And then in K2, we can do that equals this divided by 60, and that will get us how many hours there are. Okay, so just below it, I'll do a max. Well, we know that the max is 312 because we've ordered it by highest to lowest, but let's just perform it anyway. And then a min. 3, yep, and then we'll do an average, so equals AVG, open brackets, 99. So, yeah, it's pretty useful to see the average length of movies. Okay, so I'm just going to delete these columns now, and I'll delete this column, and let's remove the filter. I'll save my data here. So in the next video, we will look at our if statements. Hi everyone, so in this video, we're just going to cover the if statement. So it's very similar to the case statement in SQL. And you can see in the syntax here, it's equals if, open our brackets, and then we check for a condition in a cell. So for example, if cell E2 is greater than 2010, so that will be the year, then it will return the first value. Otherwise, it will return the second value. And I just want to add a reminder here of what each operator equates to. So we've got greater than, with less than, and equals to, or just equals to or not equals to. So let's create a flag in our data set here in column I. We'll name it year after 2010. And then in cell I2, equals if, open brackets, and then in release here, we can click into cell E2, greater than 2010, comma, 1, comma, 0. So this is what it's going to return. If it is true, the value is true, and if the logical test is false, then it will return a 0. Close brackets, enter. And now we can drag this down, and then when we look at row 9, for example, it's going to be 0 because it was released before 2010. So we can use if and check for 2 conditions by typing in and. So you can see here, equals if, open brackets, and, open brackets again, then we can enter 2 conditions. So it's going to make sure that both conditions are met, then it will return 1, otherwise 0. So let's check for release here after 2010, and the duration is more than 120 minutes. Okay, so after 2010 over 2 hours. And then enter our calculation equals if, open bracket, and. So we're checking release here greater than 2010, comma, and duration greater than 120. Close brackets. So let's close our first bracket after and then we enter our comma. Our value is true, 1, value of false 0, close brackets. And then if we just hover over the bottom right corner, double click, it's going to check it for everything. See, it doesn't happen very often. It's release here after 2010 and it's longer than 120 minutes. Okay, so if or, we'll check for one of 2 conditions being met. So it's very similar to if and, except it will only need to have matched one of the 2 conditions to display the output in 1. And if not, we'll check for a condition not being met. So let's try both of these. So in cell K1, just name it TV, PG, and PG equals, and then in our rating, equals if, open brackets, 4, open brackets, and then in our rating, we're going to put equals. And then in our rating equals, open double quotation marks, and then we want it to be TV-PG, close double quotation marks, comma, and then we do F2 again, equals, double quotation marks, and then just PG. So because it's a string, we need to put this into double quotation marks. Then we can close our brackets, value true 1, value false 0. So since this is TVMA, it hasn't matched either condition that we put in. But if we drag down, you can see that because this is TVPG, it is matching it, so it's going to display 1. So then we can double click it, and it'll show each time it's TVPG or just PG. And then if we scroll right to the bottom, we can sum these just below it. So you can enter our sum calculation and drag down the whole column. Or you'll see at the top right here under editing option, we can hit auto sum, and Excel automatically works out what we want to sum. So we can see how many then TV shows or movies have a rating of PG or PG. And then we'll hit not. Let's check what isn't R rated, for example. Equals if, brackets 1, 0. And then, oh. You can see there's a couple that aren't already. Okay, so that is it for if statements for now. In the next video, we will look at sum ifs and countifs. But I just want to delete our data here. So if you just click into year after 2010, the first one we created, and just hold Control Shift and End, let's just delete everything. Okay. And then we just want to keep our data. We're just putting in these columns for learning purposes. So I'll see you in the next video. Welcome back, everyone. So in this video, we're going to look at sum ifs and countifs. So sum ifs will sum a range that we specify, but it will also check that range, or it's a different range for a criteria. And we can do it for a single criteria or multiple. So if we wanted to do it for multiple criteria, we just continue to add them after. So let's look at an example here. So in the first calculation here, you can see it is going to sum cells D2 to G8808. But first it will check B2 to B8808 to make sure it's a movie. Sum ifs will check two conditions here. So it's also going to check column B to make sure it's 2021. So let's run these two calculations. Okay, so we'll just enter that calculation in cell I2. And we want equals sum ifs. Open our brackets. And then we'll just highlight cell D2. And then Control Shift and down. So we're going to, okay, so it's going to stop if there is a blank. So we just need to keep hitting down until we get to 8808. And then drag back up. Enter our comma. And it's going to check the type to make sure it's a movie. And then another comma, double quotation marks, and then we can enter movie. Close our double quotation marks. Close our brackets. So we can see how long the movies are in minutes. So just in the cell below, let's copy the same calculation, but we'll add in another condition. So after our movie, double quotation mark, we need to enter another comma. And then in cell E2, we're just going to check it for being year 2020. Okay, so it's going to be much lower now because it's only showing the sum of the durations, where the release year is 2020. Okay, so countifs is very similar to sum ifs. It has just count the range instead of summing it, depending on the criteria. And we can add multiple criteria as well to countifs. So let's count how many movies were released in 2020. Okay, so let's count our movies, so equals countifs. And then open our brackets, let's click into our type. Cell B2, Control Shift and down. And we want that to be equal to a movie. And also back up at our release year. We want to Control Shift down, and we want it to be 2020. And then we can close our brackets, and we can see there's 517 movies that were released in 2020. Okay, so these can be very useful. They save you filtering through movies and then summing the duration after. We can just do it with one simple calculation. So that is it for countifs and sum ifs. So in the next video, we will start looking at unique left and right calculations. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at unique left and right. So unique is like distinct in SQL. You may want to use this when you're receiving a new data set and you want to view what the column contains. So you just enter equals unique, open brackets, and then just enter the column that you want to show the unique values for. So let's do that for some columns, because we will discover a problem with this one. Okay, so let's enter in cell I2 equals unique, and then we can open our brackets, and then you can do it in one of these columns here. So I'm going to do it in the duration type column, so it shouldn't bring too many results. So you can see there is season and season, so we can just keep it as that. If there's more than one, it will be seasons. But there is a zero, so that means there's some blanks. So let's just hit data and filter at the top here, and then let's just display those blanks. Okay, so it sees Louis C.K. movies. It has put the duration into rows. So sometimes data can just be received and it's quite messy like this. So luckily it's just the 3 rows. So in duration, I'll just manually enter what they are. And then duration type is min. I'll just copy them down, and then we can delete the rating that displays like this. We unfilter this, just going to save. So now, we filter duration type, it's only going to show min, season, and seasons. Okay, so the other two topics I wanted to cover in this video that I would commonly use is left and right. So it's by like substring in SQL, so left extracts a specified number of characters from the start of the text, while right will extract it from the end. So calculations are very similar. You just equals left, open brackets, and then our cell, and the specified number that we want to return. So let's try this. So what we can do here is equals left, and then we can just give our type alias. I'm on the wrong row here, and then we'll just show the first 2 letters. I'm just going to show TV, and if it's a movie, it will show MO. So we'll just drag it down, and you can see sometimes it will be MO because it's only showing the first 2 letters. Or if we show right on our year, for example, we'll just show the 2. We'll just reduce it to only the last 2. But we can't differentiate if it was the 1900s or the 2000s, so it wouldn't be very useful. But it's a good way to just show you how these would work, and it can be very useful. So that is it for this section. In the next video, we will cover VLOOKUP, which is something I use all the time. So I'll see you in the next. Welcome back, everyone. So in this video, we're going to look at VLOOKUP, which is something I use every day. So it is used to look for a value or string in a table, and it returns the value of the column you specify. So we see in the syntax here, equals VLOOKUP. Our first input is the lookup value, so this is the cell which we want to look at. Then we highlight the table array of where we want to look, so this will be multiple columns. Then we enter the column number that we want to return, and the range lookup will either be true or false, but normally I would put false. So I think it would be easiest to look at an example. So in I3, for example, or I2, we'll just enter a few show IDs. So say we were given a list of show IDs, so let's enter S4, S8, S8, S90, S105, S250. to return the name of the movie of the show IDs. Rather than search through this list, it would be quite extensive because we just enter equals VLOOKUP and open our brackets. And then we select this as the first input. You can see here, it shows us the syntax. So lookup value, we want to look for S4, then comma. And the table array is just where we want to search. So we will highlight the whole, you can highlight the whole thing, but I'll just highlight the first 3 columns. So we're only going to do insert column, insert comma, then 3 is the column that is going to return the value of, then comma. And we want the exact match, so that's why we will type in false. Okay, S4, you can see it's called Jailbirds, New Orleans. So now we can just hover over the bottom corner of the cell and just drag it down. And we will have the name of the title of the show IDs. Okay, and let's do another example. So let's just copy our formula here. Okay, I'll just paste it back in there so it's a bit fast. So rather than showing the title, let's display the release here. So this is our 5th column. So we will just change from A to C. So that's what's being checked. We can change this. Let's just show it all. And actually delete it here. Put our comma. And just highlight both. Table. And rather than displaying the 3rd column, we'll show the 5th column. And you can see it will now show us the release here. And you can display any column here. We'll show the column and the rating. So yeah, VLOOKUP can be very useful, especially if you have a very long list. You can double click and it will go right down to the bottom of the list, and then you can export that data. So that is it for VLOOKUP. In the next video, we will look at pivot tables, which is again something I use all the time, and we'll use it quite a lot later in the course. So I'll see you then. Okay, so we're going to look at pivot tables in this video. I just want to delete the data that we just in the VLOOKUP video that we just created. So to create a pivot table, so I'm just going to unfilter as well. We just click anywhere inside the data. And at the top here, you can see insert. There's an option for a pivot table. So you just click it from table range, and Excel will automatically work out the range that you want to create your pivot table from. You can select existing worksheet if you want to keep it in the same worksheet, or you can just click new worksheet and then it will add a new worksheet. But I'm actually going to just put it into this existing worksheet. So what a pivot table does, it will summarize large amounts of data. So we have over 8,000 rows in this data set. But what if we wanted to see, for example, how many shows and movies were released in each year? So a pivot table would be the best way to go about that. And the way we do it is, you'll see our field names here on the right hand side, and we can bring in release year and drag it into rows. So it's going to show a row for each release year that's displayed in our data set. And then show ID, for example, we could count these. So this will count how many records show up in each of these years. So you can see it's automatically counted them. But if it's summed them, for example, we'd have to change it by doing, you can click on the arrow, value field settings, and then we have options here of what we want to show. So we can also sort this, so we could right click here, sort largest to smallest, and now we can see 2018 is the release year with most shows. So we could even break this down by type. So if we drag type into columns, then it's going to show movies and TV shows, then our total. So majority are TV shows, but you can see how many movies there are as well. So let's insert another pivot table. We'll just click back into our data, insert a pivot table. We'll insert it into a new worksheet this time. You can see it opens up in a new worksheet. So let's bring in now, for example, so we could just sum the duration now. So rather than our calculation from previously, we could just do it in a pivot table. And then we could also filter it, or break it down again by, well, TV show duration is only going to be 1 or 2 seasons because it's seasons. So yeah, you can also drag the type into filters, and then there's a drop down, you can select multiple items. If you had more than 2 here, and untick TV shows, then it's just going to show for movies the sum of the duration. And then we can bring into rows our rating. So now we can see the sum in minutes of the ratings for movies. So the blank ones will just be missing data. It's just unfortunate that that's the way it is. Okay, so that's it for pivot tables. Let's just delete the sheet we just right click. And we'll just delete our pivot table that we had inside our Netflix title sheet. You will get much more practice with pivot tables later in the course. So in the next video, before we import all this data into my SQL Workbench, I'm just going to get you to try 5 questions on your own here using this data set. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so before we import all our data into my SQL Workbench, let's just try these 5 exercises. So we'll just do them one at a time. The first one is to display a count of movies by film duration in a pivot table, sorted by count of movies. So I can just pause now if you want to, and I'll go over the answer. Okay, so let's just go over the answer for that one. So we'll insert a pivot table in our Netflix title sheet. Just at the top here, insert pivot table. And I'm just going to keep it in the same sheet. So we wanted to see a count of movies by film duration. So to do that, we'll bring in our duration. So we want to see 1, 2, 3 settings. It's showing seasons at the moment. But if we drag type in filters, we'll change that to a movie. It's only going to show movies, so there is some short movies as well. And then we want to show a count of show ID. And then what we will do to sort it is to right click, sort largest to smallest. So most movies are 90 minutes long. Okay, so the next exercise is to sum the duration of movies released between 1990 and 2000 using sum ifs. Okay, so let's just answer that question in cell I2. So equals sum ifs, open bracket, and then we want to sum the duration. So that's the first criteria, is the sum range. So we just click in cell G2, control shift and down, and then we can just put in our comma. Select cell number sum. Then our criteria will be, our first criteria will be for the release year to be greater than 1990. So we'll just click into cell E2, control shift and down. So that's the criteria range. So that's the criteria. So open our double quotation marks greater than 1990, close, comma, and then point to the same thing, to the E8008. But our criteria, the next one will be that it's less than 2000. to add our type to be a movie, so just add a third criteria. So add a comma, highlight cell B2 to be median 0 weight, and then just a comma, and again double quotation marks, and we'll do to be close. Okay, and then we get 25,200 points. So it's our criteria that we want to sum, criteria range 1, and the criteria range 2, criteria, and a third range, and then the actual criteria. You can just add multiple ranges. Okay, so next we'll count how many TV shows were added each month, regardless of the year. So we'll use a pivot table for that also. Okay, so you can see we have our month name in our date added column. But it also comes with the day and year. So let's just delete our pivot table first. And what we can do, so you can either split the text in columns, but I think we'll just insert a new column ourselves called month code, and we'll use left, and we'll just bring back the first 4 characters. 3 actually, just for a sort of short code for them. And then if we just double click at the bottom corner, it will do that for all of our date added cells. And then now you can just Control Shift and down, Control C, and then we want to paste the values. Just remove the formula. And then from here, we'll insert another pivot table. Just bring it in next to our data. And now we can use our month code. Okay, so now we've come across an issue. And you can see it's only displayed sometimes 2 letters because there was a blank space before. And that's because we haven't trimmed that column. So what we want to do is first trim it. So let's just delete this pivot table. We could either trim the month code, but I would actually prefer to trim the date added, and then we will replace this. So we will trim, and we'll just trim everything. So I'll just start from the column name, and then we'll just double click. So let's delete our column I, and then let's just copy and paste our values. So we want to replace this. Control C, and then right click, paste value. So now it removes the calculation, and then we can now replace this column D with our trimmed date added. So I hit Control and X, so it will remove the column, and then Control and D to paste it into column D. Now we'll repeat the process. Month code equals left, and then just 3. So hopefully now we won't have that issue. Control C and then paste values. So let's try it again. Insert a pivot table. Okay, so now you can see we just have damage December. And let's just find our show ID. So Ken R blank because there is no value. And then we finally just need to add in type and filter, and we'll just filter it to TV shows only. Okay, so that's the answer there. Okay, so the final few questions. Display a unique list of release years, and show a pivot table with rating on columns, release year on rows, and the sum of duration as the value. Okay, so for a unique list of release years, we just in cell J3, for example, I'll just equals unique, open brackets, and then we'll just highlight column E, close brackets. So now we have a unique list of release years. And the final one is to insert a pivot table. So I'm just clicking anywhere, insert pivot table, do it in the worksheet. So we want to see the rating on the columns, the release year on rows, and the duration. So we'll just sum the duration. Okay. So as we go further down, we'll see the more recent release years where there's more data. Okay, so that's it for the question. So now we'll just have to delete everything. I'm going to delete our pivot table here. And I mean, we could bring in our month code, but I'm just going to delete it. Okay, so in the next video, we will prepare this data. We're going to need to put each sheet into its own workbook, and then we'll bring all that data into MySQL Workbench. So I'll see you in the next video. So welcome back, everyone. So now we're just going to split each sheet into its own workbook, and then import all those workbooks into MySQL Workbench. So we'll open a new sheet by clicking File, New, and New Blank Workbook. And then what we'll do is just copy our cast. We'll just work across them all. We'll copy our cast data into that. So by holding Control Shift and End, now we can just copy all of this data and paste it into a new workbook by Control and V, and then we'll save that workbook. And I'm just going to name it as cast. So whenever we click Save As, we want to change it to be a CSV file. So there's comma delimited option here. So we want to make sure we save all these as CSV. Otherwise we won't be able to import it. So make sure you do that for all our documents that we're saving here. So once you've saved it to your preferred folder, we can just close out of it, and then we can delete this sheet. And then we're just going to repeat that process 4 more times for listed in, country, directors, and description. And we can keep Netflix titles in this workbook. So I'll just go File, New. And this will be called listed in. Okay, so I've saved it up here. Let's close out of it. First I'll just open our new workbook. I'll just end. Countries. Okay, I've saved this as countries. 2 more to go. I'll just save this then. Save as directors. And then description's the last one we'll do. the null cells as well. So we'll do that next. Okay, so I saved the spreadsheet as description. So I've opened up all our spreadsheets here, as you can see. We have 6. And now we just want to search for our blank cells and replace them with the word null. Otherwise, whenever we import it, it will cause issues. So I've just resized our columns here. Control Shift right and down will highlight all our cells with data. But what we can do then is, at the top right here, you can see there's a find and select option. We'll click replace. So we leave find what empty, and we will replace it with the word null. And see if there are any blank cells. So there aren't any. So our description spreadsheet is important, so let's just close this. Yeah, we'll save it. So now we're just going to repeat this process for all our sheets. So I'm just going to highlight these cells again and just make them bigger. So you can see there will be some blanks here. So let's just highlight all our cells. Find and replace our blanks with nulls. Now we just click find all and replace all. So it's made 7,098 replaces with null. So now this spreadsheet is the same. Do the same. So you can also just click the top left corner here and highlight every cell, and then just double click your show ID or any column just to resize the table. And then drag it down. And then replace all. Quite a few ones in this. I feel like past will be many more. So let's save that. Close. Complete. Quite a few in this. Okay, this will be the big one. So this may take a while. See in the top left, it's searching. 376,000. Okay, hopefully that didn't crash your laptop or PC. But we can save that. Oh, sorry, just save. And then close. And now we just need to delete our description. And we're on to our Netflix titles. And I got a link here, so back to just 17. Okay, so that is us ready to import. So in the next video we will import these spreadsheets into MySQL Workbench. So I'll see you then. Okay, so in this video, we're going to import our 6 spreadsheets into MySQL Workbench. So if you open up MySQL Workbench, and we'll create a new connection. So just the plus icon beside MySQL Connections, and I'm going to name it Netflix dataset. And then first I'll just test the connection. Okay, it's been successful. And then we can hit OK. And now we have a new connection that we can just double click into. Okay, and then in our schemas tab on the left hand side, just right click the blank space and we'll create a schema. And just all in lowercase, we'll just write Netflix _ data. And then apply on the bottom. And then apply again. Okay, and then you can see on the left hand side, just finish. There's a new schema called Netflix data. So if we open this up, right click tables, and then we can click table data import with it. And then now we can browse to our file path of where our 6 tables are. So I'll just navigate into this folder and we'll start with cast. So if we click open, next. So here we can just select the schema we want to save the table to, and I'm just pointing it with cast. So then we click next. And MySQL Workbench will automatically select the data type for each column. And then next again, and next. Okay, next. Okay, so now we notice there's an issue here. There's only been 95 records imported. So I'll just finish it. If we right click our table, refresh all, it's going to show our cast table. So let's so yeah, it has imported everything. Maybe because of these unusual characters here. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to drop this drop the table by right clicking drop now. So what we need to do is we need to right click on the, we'll need to do it for every sheet here. Right click it and open with our notepad. And then we're going to have to save it as the same, but under encoding, we need to click ANSI and then save, and then we'll replace it. And then just follow, and then we continue with this. And we'll repeat that step for all our tables here. So yeah, I'll just do them all now. So we'll open up a notepad. Yeah, just replace them all. Okay, just 2 more to go. And then we'll do our titles. Okay, so that's them all done. So now we'll try and import it. Okay, so this table shouldn't exist anymore, yeah. So I can just delete this. And then we'll again right click tables and then table data import wizard. So now it's already remembered that we're still using the same cast CSV. So we'll just keep clicking next, and then we will import this. And now you can see it's taking much longer, so we'll import the data file. So we'll take a bit of time here, so I'll just pause. Okay, so now we can see 8,807 rows have been imported. So we can finish that. Now we'll refresh our tables. Select the rows. See those characters aren't there anymore. So yeah, it's imported all the rows now. Good. So we can just repeat this process for all our tables. So that's what I'll do now, if you want to follow along. pivot these tables so that there's only two columns, show ID and the country that is available in the show ID. So I'll see you in the next video. Hi, welcome back everyone. So now that we've imported all our Netflix data into my SQL workbench, so I'm going to just change 4 of the tables. So let's just right click cast and select rows. We'll do the same with countries, directors and listed in. So what we want to do, countries for example, we want it to look like this. We want to repivot it so that there will only be 2 columns. One will show ID and then the other column will be country that the show ID is available in. So I've attached 4 documents that will allow us to do that. All you need to do is just copy and paste the query. So you may want to change the name of the table that we create. So this syntax just creates a table for us, as, and the query is what we'll be using to create the table. So if we just open a new query and paste this in, so as I said, Netflix listed in, I'm going to name it instead of just listed in, because if we only name it listed in, it's not going to allow us to create the table, as there's already a table called listed in. So if we just control and enter this, you can see in the output all the rows that have been affected. So it's created 19,000 rows now, because many shows will be listed in more than one category. But what this query is essentially doing is just renaming each column in the whole table to just be called listed in, or sorry, just be called category, and we're just unioning each query together. And since there's only 3 columns, then we only need to union 3 times. And now that we've created our new table called Netflix listed in, if we just right click and refresh all, you'll see that it will now show up. And this is the table that we will use now, and we actually don't need our original anymore. So drop table, and then that will actually remove this table from our database. You right click Netflix listed in and select the rows. You can see now that it just shows ordered by show ID, and then you can see, for example, show 1000 is listed in 3 categories. So we just need to repeat this process 4 more times, and then we're ready to connect the data to Power BI. So the next one we'll do is our cast, which is much longer query because there are 50 cast members involved in the movie. So let's just copy this query. So I'll just control and enter, and it has executed OK, which is 4,000 rows. My Netflix cast then drop this table. Now we have our 4 tables, and we don't need to do anything with our description and country release tables. So in the next video, we will download Power BI and connect it to this dataset. So I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so in this video, we're going to download Power BI. But before we do that, I just want to show you an issue I've noticed in my Netflix titles table. It has imported a lot of unknown columns here on the right-hand side. So these may have been the ones that we were practicing on Excel. So what I'm going to do is just create a table, a new table, and I'll just name it titles. And then it's just going to be as select on, we don't want to bring in all the columns, we just want to bring in the first 7. Yeah, so show ID, type, title, date added, release year, duration and duration type. Okay, take column. And then we can just go and enter that. And then we'll we need to just put the schema in before titles. So I haven't double clicked this yet. So whenever you double click the schema, it's going to know that that's the schema that we're using. So now it'll work. So it's just created a new table. We can now refresh our table list. And now I can delete our Netflix titles table. Select all and you can see it's removed those columns, those unknowns. So now we can connect all this data to Power BI. Okay, now before we actually download Power BI, I want you just to open up my SQL installer, which we installed in the first section of the course whenever we were working with MySQL. And you just need to ensure you have a connector installed. So if you go to add, and you'll see this MySQL connector, just a little plus icon beside it. And then we have this connector /net. Just expand all of this. And depending when you watch the video, the latest connector may be different to what you actually see here. Okay, and then you would want to select the latest connector. And then click the arrow so that it shows products to be installed with the connector. And then just click on next, and then next so that it will install. Then if you just want to open up your browser and type in Google download Power BI, or just go straight to the Microsoft browser. Here we just want to download the Microsoft Power BI desktop. And you may need to open the Microsoft Store and just follow the instructions to download it. So for me, it's opened up here in the store, and you can just click install it. Okay, so mine is downloaded, so I'm just going to click on open here. Take a minute to open up. And then, yeah, I'm just going to close out this. I'm not going to subscribe, I'll do that later, but you can if you like. And I'll just close out of it. Okay, so this is how Power BI looks now. This is what we'll be working with in the next section. So before I go over everything, I just want to connect our data. So at the top here, we'll just see get data. Just click on this, and then we'll click more. And here you can see we can connect Excel with Excel together. But if we just click on the database here, and then we want to just scroll down. My SQL database. Double click on this. Now if you did have an issue with the connector here, you will see an error showing up. And this can happen depending on the computer or laptop that you're using. And if it does happen, I suggest do research on Google or go to the Microsoft community and just try and find out what solution works for others, particularly for the laptop or computer that you're using. This is an example of someone who had a problem connecting my SQL to Power BI, and there's a solution for Microsoft with connector here. And then all I typed into Google was furnace this laptop, and then you can see all the solutions here, saying which connector actually works for them. And in the actual course itself, you'll see in this lecture, in the Q&A, some previous students who have also had this issue. And there is a lot of discussion here. You can click into one of the questions about what results or what solved the problem for that student. What seems to work for most people is actually installing an older connector. So I know I suggested the latest connector whenever we were actually installing it, but sometimes an older one will actually work for you, and I'm not sure why, but it just doesn't, depending on the laptop. But if all else fails, you may need to open up my SQL Workbench and just download or export all the Netflix tables into spreadsheets, and then you can connect Power BI direct to those spreadsheets. I'll just cancel out of this, and all you do is import data from Excel. But in this tutorial, I'm going to connect directly to my SQL Workbench. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to get data 4, and then my SQL database. What we need to do then is to get our server and database, we just open up MySQL, and on the top left here, just click on Home, and then if you right click the Netflix dataset, and then copy connection string to support, we can paste that in the server then. And actually, we're going to delete the root, and just keep it as the numbers. And our database will be the name of the schema, which is Netflix_data. Okay, so and then if I just click on OK here, you can see now you may have to log in. So if you do need to log in, you can just go back to your MySQL Workbench. If you right click Netflix dataset and edit next, your username will be your root, and then you will just need to use the password that we created when we downloaded MySQL Workbench. So now we can just take all these tables and load them in. So maybe take a minute to load our tables. Once they've been loaded, they will all appear here on the right hand side in the data pane. And then you can see we can just expand these which fields are available in this table. So now you know that is at the most field. So in the next video we will get started on, I'll do an overview of Power BI. So I'll see you in the next video. Hi, so welcome back everyone. So I just saved this dashboard as Netflix dashboard. You can just do that by clicking file and save as. And what you can see on the left hand side here then is we have a model view, and we can also have a data view where we can click each table to see the data. So if we go to the model view, you can see sometimes Power BI will automatically correctly create an ER diagram for us, but this is incorrect because it has matched everything on the description, and I would prefer it to be on data titles. So what we can do is we can remove all these relationships. So if we go to manage relationships at the top here, we can just click each one and delete, except for the titles and description because we'll keep that relationship. And I'm just going to create a new relationship then, and it's going to be between titles and all our other tables. So country release first, and it will automatically create it as a one-to-many relationship. And we just ensure make this relationship active stick, click on OK, and then we'll just repeat this process for everything. We already have to. We have cast, directors, one-to-many, and then our PR diagram now with Netflix data titles being our main table, which connects to everything on show ID. Okay, so as you know, our data is in the right-hand side. And in the next pane, you can see visualization. So this is where we can add in. We just click on any visualization here. You can just see from the icon what it will be. So let's add a line chart, for example. You can just click on it. I'm just going to add this. And just below it, you can see what we want in our x-axis, our y-axis, our legend, etc. So we can just bring in any field. So let's bring in company, for example. So you can just pick it, and it will bring it into the x-axis. But we need something on our y-axis. So we can drag our show ID into y-axis, and it's going to count the show ID. And then we just click into our chart here. So a line chart is very suitable for this. We can change it to a bar chart, for example, or stack column chart decision. And you can see there are many options here. So I'm just going to, on the more options, start and then just beside our build visual, there's the option to format the page. And here we can just change our page name, our size. So let's change the size. Click custom. We can make it a bit bigger. So let's make it, we'll go 900 high by 800. Next what we can do, we can change the background color. So you can make it any color you want. I'm just going to do more colors here. I know that I'll make it 1A, 1A, 1A. So you'll have to see that also. You'll see that it hasn't actually changed the color yet because transparency is at 100%. So if we bring this to 0%, it's going to change the color. And then back into our format page. You can see there would be option to add an image here as well if you wanted to. And make an image your background. And then you can change the wallpaper. Yeah, there's many options here, but we're not going to go into them all. The only other thing I would like to do in this video before we start creating our charts is just add a rectangle to the left-hand side, which we can bring our filters into. So to do that, we can just click Insert, and we'll insert a shape, and it will be a rectangle. And then, yeah, I'll just position it here to the left, make it bigger, bring it to the bottom, just change the color of it. So under Style, yeah, I'm just going to, you can pick any color as I said, but I'm going to make mine 6-3s. Just a little bit lighter than the background of the canvas. So we also just have a blue background here, so let's remove that actually. So under Style, there's border. You can make add a border if you like with the color, but I'm just going to untick one here and change it all, and then that will remove it. So I'm just going to rename this page. So if you right click, rename, I'm just going to name it Overview. And then what we can do is right click and duplicate this page then. And I'll rename this page Single Title View. Okay, so that is it for this video, and in the next video we'll start creating our charts. So I'll see you there. Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to create our first chart. We're going to create our area chart, and we're also going to format it. So if you feel it's going too fast, you can slow down the player, or you can also just pause it and take your time as we build and format our first chart. So if you go to the visualization screen on the right hand side, you'll see this area chart just beside the line chart. Now there's an option for a stacked area chart, but we'll want to show the area chart just. So just click on this, and then we'll resize it. So you can click on the bottom right and it will let us resize it. And we're in our overview page here. And from here, we just want to show padded by the date. So if you see in our Netflix data titles, we have a date padded field. So we can just take this, and it will show up on the x-axis. And then underneath it, we have our show ID. So we want to count show ID, and that will be our y-axis. So if we drag show ID to the y-axis, it's going to count it. So what you'll notice, it's brought in every single date added. We don't want to show it like this, we want to break it down by year. And we can only do this by changing the data type. So on the left hand side, if you go to data view, we can change the data type here. So under the data titles, if you click into data titles on the right hand side, and if we click date added, at the top left here, you can see we can change the data type. And then we can change it to date. So we'll give you a warning that your data will be stored differently, but we just click yes. Now it's been changed to date format. Okay, so here you can change the data type of any of our fields if we wanted. Or we could do it before we import it as well. But if you go back to report view, you can see now it's showing a different type of chart. So it's still an area chart, but it just looks different now because our x-axis is in date format. And under our x-axis, in our visualization pane, we can now just display the date format as year. So we can change it to date hierarchy. And let's just remove day, month, and quarter. And now it's just displaying it as a year. So now we have our visual, but we want to format it, and we also want to add in a split of TV show and movies into our legend. So let's just do that. And on the right-hand side here, on the visualizations, again, you can see we have the legend option. And this is where we can drag in our type. So let's just do that. Okay, now it's split. Okay, so from here, we can format our visual. So in the middle, you'll see the option format your visual. So we'll just click on that. So we have two options. We have visual and general. So let's just work with visual first. And if we click the x-axis, you can see we can change from continuous to categorical. But this will be continuous because it will be ongoing. Y-axis, again, just change values color and general. We're going to keep it like this for now. Actually, we can remove the title. So you can just untick it and remove it all. And then for our legend, we just click on this. You can position it. So I'm going to position it in the bottom center. You can also choose if you want to show a title or not. I won't show a legend title. So under our lines as well, we can change the colors of our areas that show. So I'm going to make these more red so that they are themes like Netflix. So for TV show, you can pick any red you like. You can even go over here and pick red. But I'm just going to put D70A14. And I'll use this red. And for a movie, you can just pick more colors. And I will use 7A1217. Okay, so I might also just remove our x-axis tile. I don't think we need to show the year, and it just gets confusing with the legend being underneath it. And then from here, if you just click on general, just beside visual here, we can edit the main title as well. You can choose to remove it, but I'm going to show it. And I'll just make it shows added by date. And we can center it then. And we'll reformat it a bit later, but for now I just want to change the color. So under effects, we can change the background color. So I'm just going to click more colors and make it the same 333, 333. transparency is already at 0% for me. Okay, and from here we can actually add a shadow as well. So I'm going to add a shadow and make it slightly darker. And what we can also do here is under visual border, we can turn it on, and this is where we can make our corners rounded. So we can just drag this slider and you can make it as round as you like. I might go 22, click away, and then you can see how it looks. Okay, so what we'll do now is, I just want to format it more, make the font white, and remove the grid lines. So if you click on our chart, format visual, and then under x-axis values, we can change the color here. So I'm just going to make it this second white color 10% darker, and you can see it just changes the axis color. And then we can do the same for the y-axis. And I just minimize everything again, legend, and then grid lines here, we can just turn them off. So this is horizontal and vertical, and I'm going to remove them both. And then in general, we can change our title color here. So I'm just going to make it the same. We can make our title a little bigger here if we like. And we can change the font style also. I'm just going to keep it as big for now, so I'm just going to minimize everything. If we click away, the final thing I would like to do is just change the border color here. You can see it's slightly darker, so I want it to match the background. So again, we'll just go back to our general effects visual border, and we'll just change this color here. We're currently black, so make it the same. And you can see here, it looks nicer now, I think. So the final thing I might do here is, you can see this long line with no values before it increase, where shows start to get added. So we could add a filter, just to only show the year to be after 2012, for example. So on the filters pane here on the right hand side, we could add in our filter in the metrics. You can see our fields here. So let's just click date added here, and we can change this to show it's greater than. And I'm just going to make it greater than 2012. And then if we click apply filter, it's going to remove this long line with no values. So I think that just makes it a little bit better. Okay, so that is it for the area chart. In the next video, we will create our shows by rating chart, our bar chart. So I'll see you there. Hi, and welcome back everyone. So what we're going to do now is create 3 more charts. We're going to make them the same size as this, so what you can do is just copy it. So if we click into it and Control and C, you just click Control and V, and then we'll make a copy. So for me, it's actually too big. So I'm actually just going to delete that and make this a little smaller. And we can drag. I'll leave it like that, and then we can just copy 2 more times. So now we have 4 charts. Okay, so you can see we can line these charts up together. The red lines align with the chart on the left hand side. And for this bottom right corner chart here, for example, we can also align it with the above chart also. So let's just ensure they're all aligned. Yeah. And all I really want to do now is just change what we're displaying. So on our top right chart, I want to show a count of shows by rating. So to do that, I'm just going to keep the count of show ID in the y-axis and just delete the date added. And what we can bring in instead is from our titles. We can bring in the rating, we just drag it into the x-axis here. Okay. And we'll just change the chart type, so area chart would be suitable here. And we can just show a stacked column chart. And you can show the split, if you like, by TV show and movie as well. So it's still in the legend. So for this chart, if we just click into it, maybe we just need to change the title. So you go to format visual, and then we'll change it to general, and just update the title to be shows by rating. So just delete added shows by rating. And we'll change the title. And then back on format. I think I'll add some grid lines as well. Yeah, we can just add some minor grid lines. Okay, so I think I'll leave it like that for now. And then the bottom left chart, I will show the top 10 genres. So we just click into it, and we'll just delete. We'll need to delete both because we're using count of show ID from our data titles table block. We need to use it from our list in. So we just take category. Show ID. Not show ID. I'll just drag show ID into the y-axis. That'll be a count of show ID. And I'm going to display this as a cluster contract. Just delete the type as well in this side. Okay, so what I want to do is just show the top 10 categories because currently it's showing them all. We may see the same movie in multiple categories. That's okay. So if we click into our visual and then on the right hand side under filters, we can expand the categories type. And if we change the filter type to top 10, we can just show the top 10. And it'll say by value. So this is where we can drag in our count of show ID. So we need to change it. It's currently showing first, but we want it to be a count. And then once we apply this filter, it's just going to show the top 10. Okay, so now I just want to just change the color of the bar. So click into our format visual. So we want to get the color of red. So I'm going to go for this lighter color of TV show. So let's just remember what it was. So in the visual pane, under columns and colors, we'll just copy the TV show X. So I'll just Control and C this. And then we can assign this to the bars by clicking more colors and just pasting the X in. And then I might just remove the x-axis and add some data labels instead. But we'll position our data labels inside end. Okay, so the final thing we'll do in this chart is just to change the title as well. So again, just under format visual general, we'll just change this to be top 10 genres. Okay. Okay, so in the next video, we will turn this bottom right visual into a map showing countries available. So I'll see you there.
Okay.
Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to create our map showing countries.